What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to episode 117 of the Rise to Glory here with Gibraltar Apex, and today I have for you guys the end of Season 16. This is going to be the end of season review. I have taken some steps, however, to hopefully make this more interesting in terms of how we analyse the squad going forward. I'm hoping it's going to give you guys more of an insight, I guess, into my rationale and my thinking behind the squad, give you guys a fuller picture in terms of how our teams perform throughout the year. So, first and foremost, we are going to just do the standard end of season live com. It's going to be against Gibraltar Lions. I opted today to just do the Rock Cup. In previous years, we've done the Senior League Cup as well. Today, I thought we'd just focus on the Rock Cup because, as I said, I want to try something out that's a little bit different at the end of this kind of season in terms of how we review things. Before we get into the Rock Cup, if we quickly get to our inbox, and we're going to have to scroll quite far because I've been scouting lots of players, we have had the end of season kind of stuff coming through. So if we look here... where are we looking? Where are we looking? This is all the Division 2 stuff. Where is Division 1? That's the league we care about. Here we go. So this is all the news in terms of the Gibraltarian First Division. You can see, actually, looking at the team of the year, we only have 5 players in it, which it might come as a massive shock. To me, it doesn't. And the reason it doesn't is because this year, as I have done over the last few years, really, I've rotated the team very heavily, so a lot of our players haven't actually played more than 20 of the 27 league games. So some players, they've only played 2/3 of the games, and as a result, they're just less likely to get in the team of the year. That said, our defence has been the area of the pitch where we really haven't changed too much. You can see, looking at some of the players, we'll have a look at the players that aren't our own who have got into the team of the year. You can see Modesto here of Gibraltar Lions, a player who's been around for a little while, this guy. I believe he got Young Player of the Year a few years ago. If we look at his achievements... at Gibraltar Lions and then awards. You can see here he got in the Supporters Team of the Year for Gibraltar Lions. He got in their Seasonal Best 11. He got Best Player Runner-Up actually this year. So that's a pretty good little achievement for him. And you can see he's been in the Team of the Year a few times over the last kind of 2 or 3 years. So that's a good little achievement for him. Out on the left, a new man, John Pike, 23 years old. Not a great player really when you compare him to our players, but he's putting a sequence of good performances really for Lincoln Redham. You can see he's got 6 goals and 7 assists with 3 player of the matches. Can't complain about his contribution really to their team. In the centre of midfield, Gibraltar Lions getting both players. Anibal Perez, one of our former men, the Uruguayan, still yet to play for Uruguay. I am holding out hope that he is going to elect to play for Gibraltar, and if he does, he'd be an absolutely fantastic player for the national team. So cross our fingers for that one. Alongside him in midfield, his centre mid partner for Gibraltar Lions, this guy, Mickey Martinez, who's a bit of a playmaker. You can see he's technically very gifted. Physicals aren't that great, but he's a well-rounded centre mid in terms of his technicals and his mentals. Very good at creating opportunities, and that is what he's done well for Gibraltar Lions this year. You can see he's got 6 goals and 5 assists and 8.01 average rating for them. Anyway, up front, there are 2 players again, none of ours. Marco Faria here, Portuguese player, a new man on the block for Gibraltar Lions. They paid £1.5 million for him a few years ago. And to be fair, Gibraltar Lions, with their sugar daddy owner, they are starting to spend that little bit more money. I'm just looking here. It says that they're not rich in their finances. I don't believe they've lost or had a new takeover. No, they definitely haven't. You can see it would say somewhere here about a takeover, and I just can't see it. They've been updating their facilities as well, which is really nice. If we look at their facilities now, they've got below average stuff and basic kind of recruitment and all that jazz. I'm hoping they're going to improve that though. They've still got time for that. They're still not in their own stadium, but nevertheless, it's good to see them doing well, Gibraltar Lions. Obviously, getting to the Champions League group stage this year was a great achievement for them. To get to the Europa League knockout stages as well, having finished 3rd in their group, is a great little feat for them. And you can see, if we look through their players here, they are starting to spend a little bit of money on some players. Maybe £1 million for this guy, Juan. Not necessarily the best use of money, but the fact they're spending money now, they spent £3 million this year in the transfer window. The year before, they spent $3 million as well. So yeah, it's kind of nice to see them, starting to spend a little bit of money and try and make something happen. And well, Faria, who they paid £1.5 million for, he's turning into a good little player for them. Anyway, the next player we have here is Ruben Preto? We'll go with it. It sounds good, doesn't it? 19 years old, Spanish, playing for College Europa. I feel like I've mentioned this before, but if I haven't, College Europa were the 3rd team in Gibraltar to go professional. So that's a good little achievement for them. If we just quickly flick through the teams, you'll see the majority of the other teams in Gibraltar are semi-pro. In fact, I believe the only teams that are pro are ourselves, Gibraltar Lions, and, well, now College Europa. In truth, I expect Lincoln Redham's here to be the next team to go professional, and I'm hoping they might do it this summer, although I guess we'll have to keep an eye out on that. Another thing that I don't think I mentioned was the fact that Leo FC, who you guys may remember last year, we became their kind of senior affiliate. They got promoted last year, and that affiliation was basically terminated on the spot because they were in the same division as us. That's going to be a common problem, I think, if we do become a senior affiliate for a second kind of tier team in Gibraltar, is because our players will be going on loan to them. The chances are they're just going to get promoted really quickly. So as much as I want to be a senior affiliate, it might not necessarily be in my interest, and I think I'm actually better off just loaning players to teams who want them. You can see here that we did actually loan them a few players who they used kind of sparingly. They used Connolly a little bit at right back. They used Broadbent here. And actually, if we look at Leo, you can see they finished 5th this year, which is a European Cup spot. So that's a great kind of position for them to be in. And I'm hoping they can build off that. They will be going in at a very early stage of the Europa League, of course. Ourselves and Gibraltar Lions finishing top 2, getting the Champions League spots this year, which is kind of cool. You know, we're getting that progress now. It's getting to the stage where almost, well, it's not a case of almost, half the league is getting in Europe. Of course, that 5th spot becomes available, assuming we or one of the other teams who are already in Europe win the Rock Cup itself, which is guaranteed to happen here because we're taking on Gibraltar Lions, which is why Leo get the 5th spot. So that's a good little achievement for them, you know. First year in the Primera Division, stepping it up. As I mentioned, though, we're hoping, you know, for some more teams going pro. Anyway, that's that. In terms of the kind of team of the year, well, we've seen the team of the year. In terms of the player of the year, I'm hoping we're going to be able to find it here. It's somewhere. It's definitely, is it lower down? I can tell you the stuff, basically. We won Manager of the Year. We didn't get the top goal scorer in the division, though, which was a little bit of a surprise. I feel like the news item itself has just vanished. We'll have a flick through. I will use the up arrow on my keyboard. It seems like those news items maybe got cleared out because they're not considered that important. You can see here I'm scouting through some players. I can tell you about the awards. If we go to the Primera Division and we go to the award tab, you guys can see here that Player of the Year this year was Pereira. Good achievement for him to get that. Modesto, the right back, for Gibraltar Lions getting 2nd place, and Graphite actually getting 3rd place, which is kind of a little bit odd, if I'm honest. Graphite and Pereira, not 2 players I would have said deserve, or I expected certainly at the start of the year, to get in this team of the year, but Graphite's adapted really well to playing right back, of course. Originally joined us as a centre defensive mid. We had Marquez go for £10 million, was it last year? And he's really stepped up into his shoes and done really well, the Brazilian. Pereira getting the player of the year is a real surprise. Not a player who I ever thought would be remarkable, like remotely close to that. He came in for £2 million, which isn't a small fee, and last year he was a little bit underwhelming. This year, though, when he played, he was an absolute standout player for us. Had some great stellar performances in the league. Didn't get as much of a chance in Europe, simply because despite the fact he was performing very, very well for us in the league, he's not actually that great of a player, and, well, despite his good form, there are other players more than capable of slotting him, but he's done a good job for us, and it's kind of cool to see that the player of the year, for a number of years now, has gone to one of our players, which is really nice, actually, when we think about it. You can see Anthony Hernandez won it, Ben Connolly won it. Of course, Ben Connolly, he's still here. His contract does run out at the end of the year. I'll probably just extend it for another year. It's weird now. He's 31 years old, Ben Connolly. It's been a long time, though, since you know, he was a key player for us. You look back, really, the last season where he played regular first-team football was the 2021-22 season, which is 10 years ago. You kind of forget how long this has been going on, but players like him, you know, they definitely deserve a nod. Of course, he won it twice. Lorenko won the Player of the Year. He is now playing for FC Metz in France. The Mozambican, he's a great player, but ultimately he just wouldn't get in our side anymore, which is a little bit of a shame, but you can see when he did play for us, he was a very good player. Of course, Mark Stewart, he's still kind of playing his trade at Huddersfield Town. The Scottish forward, a very good player. Is he still playing in the Championship? If he is, that just isn't right. And, well, you look at him, you can see he's their captain and their key player. He's a player who, I mean, I wouldn't mind re-signing, but to be honest, he isn't much of an upgrade on what we have these days, and, well, he wouldn't come at a very cheap price. Reminds me a bit of Jordan Rhodes in some way, a Scottish player tearing up the Championship, just never playing in the Premier League. Anyway, the rest of the players here, Paul Smith, we already know about him. Daniele Russo, of course, finished 2nd place that year. Where is Mick Vitti these days? Mick Vitti, where are you? You're playing for Livingston. 30 years old, he was our replacement for Lorenko, and then, well, the replacement of Mick Vitti was Cafe. It's kind of weird. Always feels like our wingers got in the team of the year, and, well, I guess that's part of our system, really. The wide midfielders in our formation are a really key element of it. I often get questions, actually, about the wide midfielders and why I play with them in the 4-4-2. And the main reason I play with them rather than wingers is I find with wide midfielders, they position themselves defensively a little bit better than wingers, and I like the fact they took in that little bit more narrower to make it a more compact defensive shape. But furthermore, with wingers, there isn't a lot of room on the outside of them for like the fullbacks who are also set to attack to overlap. And I find that with the wide midfielders on attack, they will run out wide and get a ball in when they want to. But additionally, when the kind of right midfielder, say Pereira, is pushing up and is putting in a cross, because Smith isn't a winger, he's not hugging the touchline, because he's a wide midfielder, he'll drift it in at the back post. And this year in FM, crosses are really, really kind of powerful, particularly to the back post. And so getting an extra man over onto the back post is really one of the core philosophies behind this system. Really looking to exploit the space out wide and ping the ball over. Some people ask me, how do you get a 4-4-2 working in FM? I see a lot of people trying to do something where they have one of their centre mids push into this space here off the strikers. And whilst that's okay, it doesn't always work. And I feel like you often, if you do have a player role, say this advanced playmaker was on attack and he pushed into this position, this centre mid here, Mora, he just has too much to do. So in having Bouchard on support and really having the wide midfielders be the men kind of linking the attacking play, I find that works quite well. Another question I get is about the fact we don't play with like a support role striker and why I do that. One of the reasons is I feel like with a 4-4-2, it's good to have both men sit on the shoulders of the defenders, particularly in our league, assuming we're not playing against a team with a defensive midfielder. These guys are more than capable of creating space to get a pass into their feet, so I don't feel like we need that linchpin in the midfield. Furthermore, with Bouchard's absolutely amazing passing vision and his decisions, his ability to pick out the right pass at the right time, he's just such a great midfielder for basically picking out a ball to feet of the strikers here. And so there isn't an underlying need for one of them to drop deep. That said, obviously, with our poacher and stuff, he'll float around. Helic really provides that big man up top, and you can kind of, I guess, link the play up. And, well, Helic, you'll see him very often. He'll flick the ball on for Vergara or whoever the pacey striker is in our team. Anyway, I've gone on a little bit of a tangent there about the 4-4-2. I feel like I haven't talked about the tactic enough in this save. I often get asked, about the 4-4-2 and why I play it. Hopefully that justifies and explains some of my decisions and kind of the rationale behind the 4-4-2 and why I feel like it works for us, and like perhaps some 4-4-2 systems, particularly those that use, a more attacking kind of centre-mid partnership where one of the mid-attacking kind of midfielders is more attacking and gets further forward. Anyway, I don't know how or why we got on that tangent. I know why. It's because we were talking about the players of the year. Anyway, if you look at Manager of the Year, we won it again. We've won it every year. It has a scoring system, I believe this, and because we're unbeaten in over 10 years of football now in the league, it's just we win it every year, basically. If we look at top goal scorer this year, we didn't win it. We did not win the goal scorer award. Pereira got 20 goals. Mosca got 21 goals. In fact, Pereira got 22 goals. We're actually a victim, I guess, of the fact that because I rotate the team so much, we don't have one striker who stands out for us. Of course, Two's on last year. He tore apart the league, this guy, and you can see for Gibraltar he's playing a little bit for them. But at 31, he really has started to tail off as of late. Didn't play a lot for us this year, which might seem really, really harsh given how he was playing so well. But the 31-year-old has certainly started to show signs of decline. We really have strengthened the attacking options in our team as well. And despite his absolutely superb goal scoring form, I struggle to justify playing him in the team, unfortunately. Ruben Preto, who I already mentioned, the Spaniard, he doesn't look that great, but he has pace and he has some good finishing. And well, for College Europa, he's been a massive player for them. You can see they signed him for £29,000, which is an absolute bargain from Sevilla. And he's got 24 goals for them in 27 games. That's a really decent return for him. Anyway, that is everything bar the Young Player of the Year, which this year went to Villalba, or Vichalba, as I meant to say his name, but I feel like he is the Alba, kind of the Spanish fullback's kind of reincarnation. So we like to call him Alba. As you can see here, though, the 21-year-old Argentine, capable of playing both left and right back. He really has improved this year. He's been a superb little player for us. He has 4 years left on his current contract. Joined us for £3.3 million, and he is looking like a great little bit of business right there. Of course, he was one of 3 players who signed for us at the same time, and well, truth be told, the other 2 players who made up the 3 Musketeers at the time really have flopped. Miguel Gennari, he's an okay player, the Italian, don't get me wrong, but he's just not good enough. He's a useful player, and that is kind of quite complimentary, I feel like, from my assistant. That is pretty much the extent of his usefulness. He's a useful player to have in terms of just having him as a backup, but he isn't going to play in the first team. And, well, he's an okay player for us. The fact that he's still here is nice. You can see he's almost halfway through his kind of eligibility requirements to play for Gibraltar's national team, so I'm maybe holding out for that a little bit. Of course, another player who joined him at the time was Cabral, who this year was actually out on loan at Boca Juniors and still is. for the remainder of the Argentine season. Truth be told, this guy's improved a fair bit, the 21-year-old. You can see he's playing quite a lot for Argentina. His technicals have improved, his physicals have improved. He's a player who, as I said, I kind of feel like the Three Musketeers, with the exception of Villalba, have kind of flopped a little bit. But this guy, he has shown some signs of kind of promise, perhaps. You can see when he has played for Boca, he's done okay. 5 goals and 3 assists. Perhaps not the craziest return, but it's still nice to see him playing in the Copa Libertadores, which is like the South American Champions League. And yeah, he's been a useful player for Boca, and hopefully they can aid his development for the remainder of his loan. Anyway, those are the awards. If we just look at the Primera Division kind of stats here, you can see obviously we won the league. We've already gone through a lot of these stats, but if we just shift things over and look at the team overview here, you can see we had the most goals, we had the best kind of hitting the target kind of thing. We should probably look through these stats. We don't look through them that often. You can see we do have highest kind of headers completed. We win 75% of our headers, which again kind of plays into that system that I've started to deploy with the 4-4-2, where we do try and get the ball into the box fairly often, as I mentioned. Anyway, if we look at best average possession, we're really low down on this. We don't really play with the ball at feet. We like to make the most of possession when we have it and play kind of, high risk, high potential passes, but perhaps with a lower percentage to complete them. You know, we like to ping out frequent killer balls, and that's something that Joe Bouchard's done really well for us. In terms of tackles, 174%, that's fairly good already. College Europa leading the way there, which bounces testament to why they are third in the league despite not having the strongest squad. We only conceded 4 goals this year. You can see College Europa defensively not the craziest. Gibraltar Lions, 16 goals conceded for them. Truth be told, Gibraltar Lions, they're becoming fairly standout, I guess, in Europe. That said, not in Europe, sorry, in Gibraltar. That said, this year there have been a few teams who have caused them a little bit of an upset. If we look at the league table here, you can see they've lost 4 games. Obviously, 3 of them were against us, but they did also lose to College Europa. And they've also drawn 2 games against Lincoln Red Imps and Manchester 62, which I kind of find a little bit interesting, just because I feel like the previous year they were a little bit more convincing than that, and I do wonder if that's a sign that the rest of the league is starting to get that little bit stronger, which I'm kind of holding out for and hoping is the case, if I'm honest. Anyway, if you go back to the Primera Division and go back to the stats here, we can look at some of the team detailed stats here. So we talked about average possession. Penalties, we have 4 penalties. College Europa have 6. A little bit of a weird stat here is the fact that Lincoln Red Imps have won 0 penalties across the season but still managed to finish 3rd. You feel like the stronger team should be winning penalties with it, but that's just not the case. Anyway, in terms of headers won, we lead the way by like 500, which really gives you an idea of just how good we are in the air. You know, we've signed players like Helic and Elmo this year, who are fantastic strikers in the air, and with our fairly cross-centric system that we've been using domestically, it really has worked out for us. In terms of yellow cards, we have 20 of them, which, to be honest, it isn't a very dirty league. You can see each team, with the exception of Lynx, is averaging less than 1 yellow card a game, which seems a little bit odd. In terms of red cards, we had 1 this year, but I think we won that game 10-0, so I really can't complain too much with that. In terms of form, we've won every game in the year, so that's not too interesting. In terms of games won in a row, we've won 41 games in a row. We've gone 279 games without a loss, and we've scored in the last 262 games. So that's not bad. Hopefully we can keep that going. Angels with the worst form. Games scored in a row, we've already talked about. Games without losing, we've talked about. If we go a little bit further down here to attacking, you can see we scored 149 goals this year. Cross completion is 27% for us. That is significantly higher than the teams around us. Only Gibraltar Lions are particularly close. Crosses completed more than double Gibraltar Lions. Again, kind of predictable. Goals from corners, 13. We have superiority in the air. We have some very good tall players, particularly Mustafa. You can kind of see some of the stats here. I'm going to flick through these fairly quickly. Direct free kicks, we've not scored that many from direct free kicks, really. Neither has anyone else, though. Indirect free kicks, we've got a few more with 5. Pass completion ratio, 78%. It's not crazy, but I don't know, we play a lot of high percentage passes. The fact we have 78% passes complete and our average possession is 49%, and you compare that to Gibraltar United with the 79% pass completion and significantly more possession, gives you an idea of the fact that we do pass the ball a lot more with quite a high tempo, perhaps compared to some of the other teams in the division. In terms of total passes completed, significantly lower again. You know, we play the high possession or low possession passes, the low possession play, but we play the high risk passes and it kind of just works out for us. Shots on target ratio, 45% shots on target is a really good percentage. Can't complain about that. Significantly more shots than everyone else. Gibraltar Lions drawing the most fouls. I find that quite interesting. I also find it interesting that they committed 79 fouls and had 334 against. That's a really big discrepancy, particularly when you compare it to our fouls against, 279, and we committed 200 fouls of our own. Anyway, dribbles per game, you can see Gibraltar Lions and ourselves really leading the way there. In terms of defending, obviously we've done pretty well. We only conceded 1 goal from a corner. A number of teams didn't concede from direct free kicks, including ourselves. Gibraltar Lions didn't concede a goal from indirect free kicks. A very well-drilled team, Gibraltar Lions, to be fair. We did get 24 clean sheets in 27 games. I'm still looking for that elusive year where we just don't concede a goal. And I kind of feel like time is running out for that. Kind of the more the league improves and the more teams improve, the harder that is going to become to achieve. And we are getting to the stage now where, I don't know, I feel like Gibraltar Lions are on the cusp of perhaps ending our unbeaten run in the next few years. And anyway, if we look at average attendance here, you can see ours is significantly better than other teams. Of course, the remainder of the teams in the country all still playing at the Victoria Stadium. So that's a little bit disappointing for them, of course. Our overwhelming success in Europe and our dominance in Gibraltar really has bolstered a fantastic fan base. And, well, 50% of our capacity is filled for league matches, which is nice. We didn't get a single sellout, which is somewhat disappointing, but at the same time, we are consistently selling out in Europe, so I'm not going to lose too much kind of sleep over that. Our highest attendance was 10,000 fans. That would have been, I'm pretty certain, for a Gibraltar Lions game, because that is like our big kind of derby. In terms of transfer spend, you can see the highest net transfer spend this year, which Gibraltar Lions with £2.84 million. The next highest, College Europa. It really gives you an idea of the discrepancy between kind of Gibraltar Lions and the rest of the Gibraltarian clubs, and of course ourselves. Worth noting with us, we did make £26 million in profit from sales this year, which is a really, really good achievement. One thing that has kind of struck me this year is the fact we are starting to, build up a quite hefty wage budget. Our wage budget sits at £525,000, which is not a small amount for a team who, for the most part, rely on income from being in Europe. That said, I've done some number crunching, I've done some maths. If we can consistently reach the knockout stage of the Champions League year after year, we can sustain a wage budget in the region of about £650,000. So I don't really want to fulfil the entire wage budget here that we're being offered of £771,000 a week. But given some number crunching, given the kind of money we are getting from kind of people turning up for games, etc., we are in a position where we can, spend a little bit of money if we want to and still be sustainable. Of course, I'm still holding out for that league kind of TV deal in the next few years. In terms of the league itself, if we just look at the reputation, we're currently in 38th. Ideally, I don't see us improving a ton this year, despite the really good performances. If we could get to, where are we? If we could get, up a few places, that'd be good. At the moment, we sit in 38th. If we could, aim for where football kind of Sky Bet League One is in England, that would be some good progress. It would be just behind the Scottish Championship. But it does give you an idea of just how, I don't want to say how low the rep of our league is, but we're certainly not the biggest league in Europe. Of course, I mentioned the discrepancy between the money we spend and Gibraltar Lions spend and everyone else. It's worth considering we're essentially a league where we have 2 superstar teams, 2 teams very competitive in Europe, and the rest of the teams are, I don't want to say they're cannon fodder, but they are cannon fodder. And they are teams that, if you were to put them in, say, the Vanarama Conference North or South, they probably would struggle in those divisions. It really is up to us and Gibraltar Lions to really up the overall presence of the league. And, we're going to continue to do that and continue to grind away. Anyway, there were a few more stats here that I do feel like are worth going through, I do believe. So we talked about net spend. In terms of salary per year, you can see our salary per year is significantly larger than everyone else. You can see Gibraltar Lions also right up there with £9.28 million per year spent on salary. They'll still be making a healthy little bit of money every year, of course, off the Champions League money if they can consistently get to the group stage. And of course, they have got the sugar daddy owner, so the money isn't a massive problem. Good to see College Europa up in their spending as well. They've gone professional in recent years. They are kind of consistently, if we look at their fixtures, finishing 3rd in the division. They actually finished 4th last year. But they're consistently getting to the Europa League. This year they actually lost in the 3rd qualifying stage on, 3-2 on aggregate, which is not a bad performance by them, really. You can see the previous years, they didn't actually play in Europe the year before that. I'm kind of surprised then that they went pro. They did play in Europe the year before that, And you can see they've been kind of on and off. This year was their first year in a little while that they've been in the Europa League, but they were fairly competitive in it. And the fact they've gone professional now, the fact they're spending money, I'm hoping they can really emerge, I guess, as a fairly decent club for us. You can see they have a 1.5-star reputation, which if we compare it to the remainder of the clubs in Gibraltar, with the exception of ourselves and Gibraltar Lions, is fairly high. Manchester 62 also with that 1.5-star, as a Lincoln Redham. So, there are a few teams here who are starting to build up a little bit of a reputation. That is from appearing, of course, in the Europa League. Ourselves and Gibraltar Lions still a way ahead on 2-star reputation. Anyway, I feel like that's a pretty comprehensive review of where we are at in terms of the team this year, where the Primera Division's at. We're going to get into the live com, and then following that, I'm going to go through our entire squad. This is going to be a fairly long end of season review, but I feel like it's nice to go into some of the details that perhaps I don't want to say I've evaded in previous kind of seasons, but certainly ones which we've not talked about, perhaps as much as I should or would like. But that said, please do let me know in the comments if you've got to this point. I appreciate that 25 minutes of me just going through stats and telling you about what's going on is quite a lot to take in, but I do feel like it's necessary to give you all the nitty bits of detail and all the kind of nitty gritty bits to exactly what is going on and kind of, what my plans are, what my thoughts are, how the league is shaping up. As I said, the league rep is starting to, grow fairly nicely. It's quite organic the way the league's growing now. I do want to try and help out some of the smaller teams in Gibraltar if I can, particularly those playing in Europe, by loaning players to them, etc. There's been times when I've offered players out who I don't think are going to play my first team for nothing or very, very kind of small prices, and they've not come in for them, which is a little bit frustrating as well. Gibraltar Lions are going to score to start this game, and now it gets interesting. They scored the first shot of the game, and truth be told, in the first 5 minutes, they've been by far and away the better team. You may have noticed when we were going through our fixtures, we actually played them twice already, kind of in a row. This is the third game in a row against them, and we won both of those games 4-1 and 4-2. So defensively, we've not been that great against Gibraltar Lions, but we should still be beating them. We played them on the very last day of the season, having already won the league, and we played them in the Senior League Cup anyway. Bouchard going to whip it in. Villalba is there. He's not a tall player, the fullback, but he gets the goal for us, and it's 2 goals in 9 minutes, and this is going to be interesting. We mentioned when we were going through the stats, Gibraltar Lions, they hadn't scored or hadn't conceded from a corner all season. Well, that's gone out the window for them there. They may have conceded one outside of the Premier Division, but regardless, nice to get a goal from perhaps an unlikely source of a goal. You don't really expect it. And can we get another set-piece goal here? Horst, of course, Gary Horst, our former man, clearing the ball there. But Elmo, back post, he scores. It's offside, but it was a really nice finish by the Brazilian, who, truth be told, has had a very good season here. And Bouchard, another corner. It's a penalty. I mean, does this count as a goal conceded from a free kick? A corner. I guess it technically doesn't. But regardless, we'll take it. And hopefully now we can get our noses ahead in this game. Looking at the stats, Gibraltar Lions having more of the ball, but we have played better. And Helik makes no mistake from the spot. The Polish player made a really good impact, to be honest, in his first year at the club. He's been getting a lot more assists than perhaps I expected, but that is still his 28th goal of the season. Places it away, runs away in jubilation towards the Gibraltar Lions fans, which are in the near left corner, so they're not going to be happy about that. Perhaps egging on the away fans just a little bit there. But anyway, this is turning into a quite competitive game, to be fair, and Yatabari going to be involved in the build-up. Now with Juan Fernandez, now with Anibal Perez, our former man. He's going to have a point to prove. Fernandez out wide on the left. Nice block away. Martinez, though, and now with Anibal Perez. Don't let him get the shot away, boys. Nice build-up play by Gibraltar Lions, but now can we break away here? On the counter-attack, Pereira, he's been a great player this year. Can he put in a ball of quality? Paul Smith, it's in. I don't know how it's gone in. The keeper should have saved it. It's been given as an own goal. It's a nightmare for the keeper. It's a great goal, and, you'd have to say Pereira showing what he's really been doing in Gibraltarian football this year. The right midfielder really come into his own, and it's a weird goal, that one. I feel like it's harsh to give it as an own goal because it was going in. But I think Smith had the shot. The keeper parried it against the post, and it just kind of got trapped between him and the post, and he just couldn't scoop it off his goal line. And, it's 3-1 here, and we're on the attack again. Vergara to Paul Smith, whips it in. Elmo can't get there that time. But, he was close, wasn't he? Bouchard, though, playing that centre mid-defend role for us today with Vergara starting. And, Pereira with an ambitious effort from range. He hit it hard. He hit it true. Keeper did well to parry it. Now, Paul Smith, Helik, it looked offside. It's not been given offside. It's 4-1 here. His second goal of the game, and after perhaps a nervy start, conceding after just 5 minutes. We've come into our own, and you can kind of see what I was talking about here, where we have Paul Smith here, we have Elmo, Helic, and you'll see the wide midfielder on the right, Pereira. When I was talking about the 4-4-2 earlier and how the wide midfielders get into the box, that's a good example of it there. So you've essentially got 3 players to aim for. Anyway, a little bit of tactical analysis there. I don't feel like I do enough of that in my saves. If that is something you'd like, if you've enjoyed this episode, let me know. Like, really do let me know. You know, say this was good. Tell me if there was any stats you didn't care about, if there was any bits where it's just you didn't really care about it. But I don't know. I feel like this is going to be what I'd like to make more of in terms of our end of season reviews. Really go into a lot of detail, talk about some of the stats on and off the pitch. I've been looking at some other YouTubers like Second Yellow Card who, as I mentioned, helped me out by giving me this squad view, which I will be showing you guys at the end of this match, which has all the player stats, so we can really take a deep look at our team and look at where players have shot and where players have perhaps been average. But, you know, I've been watching Matt's videos, and if you don't know about Matt, someone remind me to put a link to his channel down below, because, well, his videos are fantastic, and one thing I really enjoy about his videos is just the detail he goes into, particularly with his end of season videos. He tends to do them as separate videos altogether, but I don't know, for me I feel like putting them in this end of season episode, you know, with the last match of the year, it makes the end of season, I feel like, be something to look forward to. It'll be a slightly longer episode in a lot more detail, and I think as we go forward, particularly as the league gets more competitive, it'll be interesting to see some of the stats, you know, stuff like average attendances, wage budget spends, and all that kind of stuff, just kind of organically grow and change. Anyway, Yataberry with a chance, Garcia puts it wide. As much as we are 4-2 ahead in this game and we have looked very good, Gibraltar Lions are having chances, and while they might have a set piece here, cleared it away nicely. Now can Vishalba get it away? He can. Doesn't find Elmo, but we have another corner here. Mustafa hits the post. And while considering Gibraltar Lions are meant to be very good defending set pieces, we have caused them all kinds of problems today. Of course, Helic, Elmo and Mustafa, 3 giants on the pitch. You know, we have a really good height advantage over some teams. That said, I am going to make a change here. I'm going to bring on Nick Austin. I'm also going to take off Bouchard, I think, for Andres Mora. So those are the 2 changes we'll do. But yeah, things are going well at the moment. You know, if we can win this game fairly convincingly, that'd be nice. As I mentioned, played Gibraltar Lions twice already at the end of this year, and both times we won with a 4-goal to a goal conceded margin. Unfortunately for Gibraltar Lions today, and fortunately for us, today is going to be our day and we might score a few more. It's now 5-2. Involved in the play was Vishalba again. Laid it inside to Paul Smith. And again, this is another good example of the wide midfielder over the winger. The winger would be stood a lot wider. And one thing I really like about the wide midfielders is they get into the box. And you can see how narrow we are here with our 4-4-2. This is a wing back. And this is our right wing back as well, who's looking, you know, round the back into this space where the winger would normally occupy. If I just show you, I don't do enough tactical stuff, so we'll do some here. But obviously, as I mentioned, the wide midfielders basically sit on the shoulders of each striker. And because we have these full-backs set to attack, rather than wing-backs set to attack, and one thing I dislike about wing-backs is that I don't feel like defensively they are as kind of strong as full-backs. I feel like full-backs, they still have their defensive responsibilities, you know, in their minds when they go forward. They know when to pull back, whereas with wing-backs, I like to be a little bit gung-ho. If we look at our instructions, though, you can see I do look to exploit the flanks and look for the overlaps over the wide midfielders, which is kind of to be expected. And you'll see we play fairly narrow rather than just kind of playing balanced. And again, that is all about trying to get the wide midfielders into the box as best we can. And of course, we do play more expressive, which allows players to roam around just a little bit. And that definitely helps with the wide midfielders using their own kind of decision-making abilities to know where or not to get into the box or maybe sit a little bit off the play and, you know, in a bit more space at the edge of the area. If we look at our player instructions, I feel like I should put this tactic on the Steam Workshop. If people would like that, please do let me know, because that is something I will do. If we quickly look at player instructions here, I don't think there's any too crazy ones here. You can see I have closed down more on the strikers. I have no idea why we're going through this now. I feel like I should have done this a long time ago, but I mean, why not? But you can see here, with the poacher, I like him to move into the channels and also pass it shorter and roam from position. I mentioned the fact that we don't have a striker who plays on a support role. I feel like having a poacher who moves into the channels and roams from position kind of fulfills that for us. You know, he'll drop deep when he needs to be that linchpin in our attacking play, and that works for us. You'll also notice that both our strikers have closed down more. I really like to have hard-working strikers who, as I mentioned, can really work for the play because of the nature of our football, the fact we play quite direct play and really look to play killer passes as often as possible. When the pass doesn't quite work out, having strikers who aren't going to sit down and just feel sorry for themselves about the fact they haven't got on the end of the ball and the defenders have got there. The fact I've got them on closed down more means they're going to work to get the ball. So even if the pass isn't completed, they're still going to be applying pressure on the defence and still kind of gaining us some territory higher up the pitch and hopefully pinning the ball in the opposition area. As I mentioned, with the wide midfielders, you can see I've got sit narrower and close down more on. That's just how I like to play a high pressing game high up the pitch. I have pass it shorter on just because I like them basically not to try any kind of super stupid balls. I like to leave that mostly up to Joe Bouchard. And you can see he has closed down more on as well. We don't have that on with our kind of defensive midfielder. You can see shoot less often, dribble less, pass it shorter. I really like a no-nonsense centre midfielder defence. Some people might wonder why I don't play this as a ball-winning midfielder. One of the reasons I don't is because I feel like with the centre mid set to defend, he holds his position a little bit better. If you have a ball-winning midfielder set to defend, even though they have the defend duty, they still like to charge down the ball so often and just leave masses of spaces in behind. Whereas the centre mid defender is as close to an anchor man as you can really get in the centre of midfield. And for me, it's the best defensive midfielder role in FM this year. But anyway, that's those. And then on the fullbacks, we've got cross more often and get further forward on, which is just defaults. And, well, the rest are all defaults there. Anyway, I've just rambled a lot there, but I hope it was enlightening. Did I just cancel the subs? I didn't. Okay, anyway, that's another example there of that play, just breaking down that play and explaining more about the system of the wide midfielders. And you'll kind of see it here. If we win the ball, you'll see Pereira really tucks in to help defensively, and it's just one of the better things about the wide midfielder set to defend. In fact, he's not done this here, so this might leave us in a bit of trouble as Palacio has an effort and Young saves. But no, for me, I feel like this is a pretty efficient 4-4-2 system. As I said, if people want this on the Steam Workshop, let me know down in the comments. Along with, of course, your feedback for this episode. But I don't know, 5-2 here. It's been a pretty convincing performance, which I'm pleased about, obviously. The fact Gibraltar Lions have scored 2 shows that we aren't just kind of treating them as a big punching bag. Of course, I think it was 2 years ago now, they did cause us a right nightmare in the end of season kind of matches. But we are starting to exert a little bit more dominance over them, and I think our overall quality we're adding to our squad, particularly in the final third, is definitely showing. Either way, 5-2 there. As I mentioned, that's a great result for us. We have got more to come in terms of the team review. We've won the Rock Cup, which completes our famous quadruple again. Of course, the Rock Cup, a competition that we have quite a long established history, and you can see it's kind of weird how ourselves and Gibraltar Lions always seem to meet in the final, because there is a chance that we can meet in the semi-finals or quarter-finals. Of course, I think last year that was the case, that we met in the semis, but for the most part it always seems to be us meeting them in the final, which is kind of nice, to have the two bigger teams playing one another. Fans are obviously jubilant. They were pretty pleased with Vichalba, Ernesto Vergara's performance and Helik's performances. If we go up here, we'll just do that. What was the prize money? Wow. Wow. Okay. That's ridiculous. We've been given £5.17 million for winning the Rock Cup. The Rock Cup, okay, just to put this into perspective, when I started this competition, the Rock Cup had a prize money of £20,000, I do believe. Last year, the prize money was £1.2 million, and I thought that was a good, solid improvement. The fact the Rock Cup is just giving us £5 million is absolutely ludicrous. Like, where is it repped? Where is it in the world, like in European football in terms of domestic competitions? It's up to 38th. It's almost as big as the Community Shield. I mean, it could even be higher. You can see it's improved a little bit over time. It's been 65th, 58th, 53rd. It's consistently improved, which is nice. I just can't believe we've been given £5 million for that. Well, that's a big enough sum of money, really, for me to factor that into what I talked about earlier with my wage budget and how much I can afford to spend. I feel like the Rock Cup is a competition we should be winning every year. And, well, if we're going to be getting £5 million a year if we win it, that's certainly worth kind of considering when it comes to, our wage budget and the impact it can have on it. Because that's a lot of money. Essentially, that is 10 weeks worth of our wages for the year covered by winning that competition, which when you consider right now we spend £525,000, that's really decent money. If we look at income here and then, where would it be? I guess it'll be prize money? Where is prize money? I don't know. Yeah, if we look at prize money here, this season we've got £28 million in prize money. Of course, that does factor in for how far we got in Europe. But last year, you can see we got £15 million. If we look here, Obviously, at March every year is when we get the prize money for... Is that... Yeah, I guess this is the... Is this the prize money for the competition? I guess it's not. I guess that'll be later on. But if we compare June of last year, which is here, you can see that we made 1.25 million. That will be that little spike there that I mentioned earlier. That's kind of how far we've got. You can see this consistent spike here is basically the money we get for the Champions League group stage every year. That's kind of consistent. I don't know what this spike here was. I guess that might have been... that would have been when we got knocked out in the first round of the Champions League, I guess. It's kind of weird how you can kind of analyse this to see how you did every year. So that was a Champions League first round. That was where we went into the Europa League knockout stages, and you can see the difference in the prize money there is pretty drastic. But no, that is really, really good, of course. That mini spike there is the Champions League first knockout round, and then this is the money for the semi-final. Not the semi-final, the quarter-final. Right, that's cool. It's not. I don't often look at the finances and graphs and explain things. I feel like my dad's an accountant, so I feel like I should know a lot about graphs, really. But it's kind of cool how you can analyse how well we've done in competitions just based off this prize money graph. If we actually look at the Rock Cup, well, you can see here, we can't highlight it, but this year we won £5.178 million in the Rock Cup. And as I mentioned last year, it was 1.2 million, so that change is mad. I can't actually believe that. And well, you can see the Champions League here. This year we made £22 million in prize money. Last year it was £12 million. That is the difference between getting knocked out in the Europa League... getting knocked out in the group stage, finishing third, and winning the whole thing. That is really good, really promising as well. You can see gate receipts this year. £5 million made in gate receipts. When you compare that to when we were playing at the Victoria Stadium, it's just a mad contrast. And it really gives you an idea of how the success and the stadium capacity expending really has kind of benefited the club. Either way, let's get into what I did mention I wanted to talk about. This has been a very long episode, but I hope you guys have enjoyed. We are going to take a look at, well, the squad as a whole, how we performed. I'm going to start off by going through some of the more basic stats, and then we're going to go through all the nitty-gritty stuff, which, as I mentioned, Second Year Card hooked me up with his beautiful squad view, which allows me to show you it very elegantly. Anyway, in terms of goal scorers this year, Nick Austin really led the way. The Australian, he scored goals for fun in Gibraltar this year. Now, my problem with this guy is he looks absolutely outstanding. But with Helic, Elmo, Mosca, and I feel like there's more strikers I'm forgetting. Of course, Mora and Vigaro who can play up front. Like, I don't know how much first-team football he's going to get next year. Which might seem like an absolutely mad thing to say, but if we just compare him to Mosca, like, Mosca's a lot better rounded than him. I mean, it would be very, very harsh to drop him off the back of his performances so far. Where is Mosca? Well, Mosca isn't there. Let me find Mosca. He is, of course, injured at the moment. I don't think I talked about this, but he's got strained knee ligaments. But if we just compare him to Nick Austin, the top goal scorer, I mean, he's probably better than Nick Austin. He's a little bit younger, and according to my assistants, he has a little bit more potential, which I kind of feel like factors into my decision. And also, Mosca's, you know, he made his mark for the club, didn't he, when he got the goal against Napoli. So I don't know what we're going to do with Nick Austin. It's a weird one. I'll have to think about that over the summer. Anyway, next player is Pereira, we've already talked a little bit about. Helic, the Pole, came in this year, 29 years old. His contract runs out at the end of next year. I'd probably want to extend that in an ideal world. I don't know if he's going to want to extend it. You can see he got 18 goals in 16 in the league. In the Champions League, it was a little bit underwhelming when it came to his goal-scoring capabilities. He only got 2 goals. But he did get 6 assists for us, so he definitely helped out there. I already talked a little bit about Mosca and his goal-scoring contribution. He, of course, only joined in January. It's a shame that he got injured towards the end of the year. You can see he's got 21 goals, 4 and 14 assists in 12 games. That's a ridiculous return since he joined us in the Premier Division. Of course, joining us for £6.5 million, so a pretty commanding fee. But he looks like he's going to come good for us. He also got 2 goals in 3 Champions League appearances. And I guess the other thing that's worth noting about him is the fact that you'll notice here his determination's dropping fairly rapidly. Now, the reason that is because his current personality, it was unsporting. And I wasn't a fan of that. I don't like unsporting players. He wasn't particularly professional. So at the moment, I've got him being tutored, or I did have him being tutored by, I want to say it was Helic. I really can't remember who can we check? Who's he being tutored by? He is being tutored by Helic. So Helic has 11 determination, which is going to be a detriment on Mosca because, well, you can see his determination has dropped, and if we look at it, it was 15 and it's already 14, and it might tail off all the way to 11, depending on how unlucky we are. But I think the trade-off of having slightly lower determination for being a more professional individual who isn't unsporting, who isn't going to go off mouthing off in the kind of papers and stuff, is definitely a benefit to us, and I feel like it's a hit worth taking, and I'm pleased that he is responding well to that tutoring. Anyway, the next player we have, Elmo, join us again. Another Brazilian, the tall player. You know, if we look at him here, he's 198 centimetres tall. That is just shy, I believe, of 6'6". He's got 23 goals and 4 assists for us in the league. Made a lot of appearances on off the bench as well. In the Champions League, he got 1 assist and 0 goals in 5 games and 5 appearances off the bench. Perhaps a little bit disappointing for him, but he did come in for a minuscule fee, really. You can see he joined us for £275,000, and despite the fact he is a fairly big earner at the club, I feel like we've got a lot out of him, and at 22, there's plenty more to still get out of him, and I definitely expect to see him develop over the next few years. Last player who scored 20-plus goals this year is Paul Smith. Not entirely surprising, really. Of course, I feel like I mentioned this a few episodes ago, but I am training him to play as a striker. Part of me is actually wondering whether he'd be better as a trequartista for us. Now, if you don't know, against Napoli, we played our 4-3-1-2 system from the Liverpool FC save, and it worked very well for us, better than I expected it to. The only reason I hadn't tried it sooner was because of Paul Smith. And basically, I need to try and find a way where Paul Smith, who is undeniably one of the best players at the club, can still slot in. And I think, really, his best role in that system is going to be as a complete forward, despite his lack of real finishing and off-the-ball movement. So that's what we're training him to do as an option for when we do play the narrower system. I'm hoping he can pick it up at 27, obviously fairly set in his ways as a professional footballer, but I feel like there's still time to get more out of him. Of course, 27 years old, as I mentioned. His contract runs out in 4 years' time, but we have got the optional contract extension clause of 3 years. So really, he's tied down for the foreseeable future. I talked about it before, but every summer, every January, a lot of our players are having bids come in from fairly big clubs in Europe, and usually the fees are very small now. I often get asked about the player values and why they're so low. I don't want to say it's a bug in FM, but I think a lot of it comes down to the rep of our league. You'll notice some of the players recently who we spent more money on to get into the club have slightly higher values. That is because that's kind of factored into their values as players, how much they were previously bought for recently. For players like Paul Smith, Bouchard, who have been at the club a number of years, they haven't got that kind of fee that was paid for them kind of affecting their value, and as such their values are very, very low. And I don't know if it's just the AI in Football Manager, but they always seem to just put in really sillily low bids. Occasionally we get a crazy bid like Christian Mendes, like Walter del Sol, where a team, I think they realise the true value of the player based off their actual ability rather than their value, and so they actually pay what the player's ability would dictate rather than what the value of the player would dictate, which is nice. But you know, I get bids every summer, and I found the best course of action for keeping hold of these players, which I'm kind of surprised we've been able to do, but I guess the fact we are continuing to improve in Europe is helping with that, is I basically reject all the offers. The player pretty much all the time comes to me crying, saying, please let me go, I want to go and enhance my career, and I tell them, you're not going anywhere. And basically I tie it down to the fact I say to them, look, you've got a contract at the club, you can see it out. Very often they'll go and be like, oh, you're going to regret this. You've probably had these conversations in Football Manager with your players. And the player goes off saying, oh, you're going to regret this, there's going to be a mutiny. And often there'll be a group of players come to me, you know, with a player like Bouchard or Smith who said he's unhappy. And they kind of say, oh, why haven't you let the player go? And I just reply with the reply, we'd be significantly weaker without them. And all the players kind of nod in agreement, like mindless sheep, and decide that the decision was the right one. And what it tends to happen is for the first month or so after the transfer window that I've not sold the players in, they're really unhappy. But it eventually works out because we start winning enough league games and continue to progress in Europe that they just become happy. You probably notice that in some episodes. If we look at the morale of players, around January and kind of August time, all the players are really unhappy and sad that I've not sold them. By the end of the year, players like Paul Smith have superb morale. It's just the circle of life, really. Anyway, that was a weird tangent again. I feel like I'm just covering all bases this episode, but I think it's a pretty impressive achievement to have 6 players score more than 20 goals, and it's perhaps testament to what I mentioned earlier when it came to the Team of the Year, that we just have so many players in kind of good kind of attacking positions that I just rotate the squad so frequently that no one plays enough to get in the Team of the Year. Anyway, when it comes to assists, Pereira really leading the way with 26 assists, which, I mean, I want to say it's a surprise, but it isn't really. He really came out the trap flying this year in terms of his performances in the league, and he's just carried that on, deservedly Player of the Year. In terms of other top assisters, you can see Graphite right up there. Can't believe quite how many assists he's got this year from right back, although I guess that's testament to our system in a lot of ways. The fullbacks do get forward and get the ball into the box. He's got 19 assists. Vishalba has 18 assists. Vergara has 17 assists. He's only played 19 games, of course, joined us just around January, in the January transfer window, the Argentine. A club record fee of £8.78 million, or £75 million. But he's been a great player for us. He really has. He was a difference maker in Europe as well. You know, he got a goal and an assist in just 4 games there. And most notably, I guess, against Napoli. And he's been great. And again, Mosca, another player who he joined the club recently. And it's a shame that he's injured at the moment, but he joined us in January. And he's just been an assist machine. He got 14 assists in 12 league games, but he's got 19 in all competitions. He got 4 in 4 in cup games. He's just been superb. And it's really nice to see these players who we have signed making instant impacts despite the fact they are only 20. And I think that is something that is certainly worth considering with this squad. Is that if we just sort the players by age, for the most part, we have some ridiculously young players who I am very, very excited to see develop over the next few years. Anyway, those are kind of the big stats, the ones that I normally cover. Now we are going to get into some nitty-gritty stuff. So I'm now going to go to the post-mortem, Jack, not post. Well, I'm not Northern. The post-mortem squad view screen. And it's going to look like a maze of numbers. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these stats because there is quite a lot, but I feel like there's some quite interesting ones there. So we'll start off, I guess, with mistakes leading to goals. And we don't make many mistakes. We've had 5 mistakes leading to goals this year. Now, of course, this does count for the league and it does count for the Champions League. And there's no way, unfortunately, to segregate those stats so we can just look at the league stats and then just look at the Champions League stats, which would be nice because in this kind of situation, obviously, we do boss the league by such a large margin. But not many mistakes are made there. If we look at tackles completion ratio, now, it's worth noting, of course, Daniel Forster played like 1 game for us or 1.5 games, so he's won all his tackles. But when we look at the rest of the players here, it really is impressive just how good they've been defensively. And these are the kind of stats which I wish I could show you guys more often. Mustafa, like, I don't want to say he's my player of the year, but he's my player of the year, this guy. 22 years old, Egyptian. He's just been superb for us. He's been absolutely incredible. This was his 5th year at the club. And let me tell you now, I mean, let's just look at his stats. He's completed 91% of the tackles he goes for. He's played over 3,000 minutes of football. He's made 20 key tackles in 38 games, 5 on off the bench. He's got 4 goals, which is fairly nice. Perhaps his pass completion lets him down just a little bit, but ultimately he is a centre-back. In terms of tackles per game, he makes 3.55, which is nice. Dribbles per game, doesn't make many, but that doesn't surprise you. But these stats are the ones which make me laugh and love him even more. His game win kind of percentage is 88% won. He wins 91% of the headers he goes for. 91% of headers, and he's made 145 key headers. Let me just compare that to the next highest player, which is Frigier. Now, Frigier's won 86% of his headers. Mustafa, 91%, and like 55 more than Frigier. Like, what the hell? And I'm saying like a lot. That's how good this guy is. 20 strength, 19 jumping reach, 18 heading. His marking superb. His positioning is great. He's just in the right place to leap for the ball and win it. And it's absolutely ludicrous to see. And I mean, 91% of your headers won. Like, I know he's 6'6" and you expect him to win everything, and he is a towering centre back. That's a good media description right there. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely unfound of. Anyway, let's move on to some other stats here. Let's look at key passes, which is one that I feel like over the last few years I've had a few comments about Joe Bouchard having a lack of assists. And to be fair, if you were just to look at it, you'd probably be right to criticise him. You know, he's done, like, last few years, not loads of assists. 15 assists in his last 3 seasons in the league. Considering the amount of league goals we score, that's pretty underwhelming. But I think the key thing to mention with this guy, and I almost wish football was more like hockey in terms of, in hockey, if you give a pass that leads to an assist, so say I pass to a player, that player then passes it and we score, I get an assist as well called a secondary assist. If Bouchard had secondary assists, which he probably wishes he had because he is Canadian after all, he'd be right up there. He's made 283 key passes for us, which is an absolutely incredible kind of, you know, just amount of key passes to make. The next highest is Graphite, the right back, with 202. So again, he's putting in a lot of balls, and of course that's kind of shown in his assist. But Bouchard, he's just such a good player for us. You can see his average rating, 8.21. he just does the basics right for us. 8 assists this year, 3 player of the matches. He does fairly well in his tackles as well. He's not great defensively, but 70% of his tackles won. And, he averages 78 minutes on the pitch per game that he plays in. I mean, he's a very good player for us. You can also see if we look at his overall number of interceptions, 256 is not bad for a centre mid. Like, that is numbers to be proud of. And speaking of interceptions, let's just look at these because I forgot to mention this stat. Mustafa and Frigère, to be fair, Frigère deserves a mention as well. 448 interceptions, and actually, stat here that we missed for Mustafa, he makes over 10 headers per 90 minutes. Like, every 9 minutes in a game, he wins a header. That's mad. I mean, is that a sign that teams are just lumping the ball forward? Perhaps. But, I mean, that's the amount he wins. Like, he obviously loses 10% as well. So, I mean, I might sound like at this point I am ranting on about Mustafa. Like, he's my player of the year. He really has been a revolutionary player. And the fact that we've kind of nurtured him ourselves really kind of makes a difference. Anyway, let's look at the average ratings. And the highest player with the average rating who's played frequently is actually Mosca. Now, of course, he only joined in January, so his total minutes for the season only sits at 1,445. But he's a very good player. You can see he doesn't complete a load of crosses for us, but he scored 27 goals and made 19 assists. His pass completion is really high as well, which, I mean, I brought him in not really expecting him to be that great at passing. He has 10 passing. It's not standout, really. But he seems to do a very good job with it, and he hits the target frequently. 55% of his shots do hit the target. He gets 1.18 assists every 90 minutes, and his minutes per goal is 53 minutes, which is absolutely crazy, of course. Perhaps benefits slightly from the fact he came in January, so he only played 4 European games for us, but regardless, that's a really, really key stat for him. And the fact he made 94 key passes, again, kind of plays into the playmaking potential I think he's shown. Anyway, the next player on average rating is actually Pereira out on the right, and then following that is Paul Smith, which, to be honest, doesn't entirely surprise me because our system does really work around getting the most out of our widemen, and the fact that Villalba and Graphite are also up there is kind of testament to that, I guess, the fact that our wide midfielders really are the players who benefit the most from our system, as well as our kind of fullbacks. So if you just look at some of the stats here, of course, you can look at the details yourself. If there's any that stand out that I miss, I apologise. There's a lot of stats here. I love numbers. There's a lot to go through here. Obviously, we're not going to go through them all. But I think for Paul Smith, key things that stand out for me are just his key passes are fairly decent. He has made a few mistakes, but he plays the low percentage passes. He crosses in the ball a lot. You can see here that if we look at his passes completed per 90 minutes, he completes a pass every 3 minutes, which actually seems really low when you think about it. But I guess that's just the nature of our team. Who gets the most of the play? Joe Bouchard, that doesn't surprise me. He's just the engine in the team. But no, I feel like for Paul Smith, he just gets a lot of assists for us. He crosses the ball in. He really does make stuff happen. You can see his cross completion isn't crazy at 23%, but very often when we win it from the crosses, we're obviously scoring. And you can see he doesn't even shoot that often, and neither does Pereira either. Although Pereira, kind of curiously, has won a lot more headers than Paul Smith. I don't know if that's to do with the fact Paul Smith takes set pieces. I guess that probably plays into it somewhat. But both these players, they play very well for us. And actually, Paul Smith, considering his lack of finishing, he hits the target 60% of the time. That can definitely not be underestimated. Anyway, Vergara, a player I do want to talk about because he was the record transfer. I talked about him a little bit earlier. 20 years old. I still think he has room to improve. But he's been a very, very good player for us as well. You can see, if we just look at his kind of stats as a whole, he's got 12 goals and 17 assists. Alongside Bouchard, really has worked wonders, I guess, in the midfield. If we look at his key passes, he's got 168, which... kind of considering the amount of time he's actually spent on the pitch is just such a great kind of return from him. Perhaps not as good defensively as some of our other centre mids, but regardless, he's a very talented player. He's a player who I think would benefit a lot from us, perhaps moving to the 4-3-1-2 system, which is the narrow kind of formation that, of course, we used against Napoli, just to recap it here. I feel like this system he benefits massively from, perhaps playing as that trequartista or as the complete forward. I feel like he could make a very good complete forward in the future, Vergara. Although, to be fair, he's got the box-to-box capabilities as well. He's a very flexible player, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, let's go through a few of these other stats, just a few of the more trivial ones. In terms of most minutes played this year, it's actually Graphite at right back. He has not missed many games for us. He hasn't been suspended too often. He's actually played more minutes than Ludwig Jung, who actually was injured for a short while at the beginning of our Champions League group stage campaign, of course. Behind him, Ludwig Jung. And then Bouchard right up there as well. if we look at crosses completed and the overall percentages, the player who plays the most often, who has kind of a good cross completion, is actually JJ, which is a little bit weird. I feel like for him, he probably doesn't put in that many balls really as the centre mid, so when he puts them in, I guess the amount he puts in, they just get completed a lot more. Fireloss is up there as well. He hasn't played a ton for us. You can see he only played 600 minutes. But the young Ecuadorian is a player who I do think deserves some football. And given how well Pereira performed this year as a player who I didn't expect a lot from, I do feel like this guy has a lot to offer, particularly with his very good physical. So definitely a player to keep an eye out on, going forward this year. Anyway, if we look at key tackles, we've already talked about Mustafa and Frigère. Graphite also done very well, as has Villalba. To be fair, I feel like the fact that these guys are the players with the most kind of key tackles made kind of gives you an idea of just how key they've been for us. The fact that our back four has been so stable this year has been a massive benefit. It's kind of weird because if we actually just look at our team real quick, in terms of the star ratings here, you'd argue the defence is the area of the team that needs the most improvement. In an ideal world, I feel like Frigère, perhaps as a replacement for him, and Villalba could perhaps have a bit of competition at left back. But, given how they perform, it's kind of difficult to justify making those changes there. I feel like this summer, I don't know if we're going to make too many major transfers. I guess it depends on who we end up selling. There's been a big turnover of players in recent years. I feel like our squad balance at the moment is very good. And I feel like we'll benefit a lot just from getting in a lot of young players who we can kind of develop, the likes of, players very similar to hopefully Mustafa, Bouchard, Paul Smith, players who we get in, pre kind of their 20th birthday, and we can really mould to suit our team and kind of get the most out of them. Similar to, I guess, what we're doing with Mosca at the moment. A player who's very talented, getting tutored by Helic, and hopefully he's going to benefit from that long term. Anyway, there's a load of stats here. I could go through them all. I'm not going to bore you guys too much. We are up to an hour in this episode, which is absolutely crazy. As I said, this episode, I wanted to do something different for the end of season review. I do like doing these more in-depth videos. I feel like it might benefit from a bit more structure, but I feel like we'll get there by me learning what you guys care about and what you don't care about. So as I said, feel free to go in the comments and let me know which bits of this episode you really enjoyed, which bits you feel like I could cut the fluff out of. As I said, we'll just end up by looking at the coefficients. At the moment, we sit 13th, but we are set to leapfrog Russia, so we will get 12th. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like 12th is an automatic group stage spot. It is. So that would be really good. Assuming we are going to leapfrog Russia from next year, not this next season. It'll be season 18. Of course, this is season 16. It takes an extra year for these all to take effect, but at least I think that's how it works. But we will have a Champions League group stage spot, which is really nice. That also does mean that the best place qualifier, which we were in before, will now go to Gibraltar Lions. So they might have a little bit of a tougher time to get to the group stage. But it does also mean that we get a Europa League group stage spot for the team who finishes third. So that's going to be good for College Europa, They are going to get a chance to prove themselves in the Europa League. And, Lincoln are also going to have a chance because they're going to be in the third qualifying phase. And this is just kind of the benefit of us improving. It's going to be that, I guess, the other Gibraltarian clubs who aren't that great are going to be able to piggyback off our success. And as long as we can keep the coefficient slowly rising, there's going to be more and more opportunities for these teams really to perform well. So that's something certainly to look forward to. Either way, that's that. In terms of the club coefficient, just a real quick look at this. We are currently 31st. We are going to go up just a little bit. I'm not sure how many spots we're going to rise. I think it's only going to be 4 or 5 spots. But regardless, that will see us get into the top 30 European clubs in Europe, which is a good little feat. And actually, if we just scroll down here to the Gibraltarian clubs, and look at their coefficients. I just want to see how Gibraltar Lions have got on. You can see that every year we've been consistently getting, decent coefficient points. This year we've got our highest ever at 24.640 coefficient points when you compare that to our previous best, which was 18.475. That's a nice little improvement. Of course, that is just the benefits against the Champions League quarterfinal. But it's worth noting, look, here for Gibraltar Lions, the fact they got to the group stage and finished third means that their coefficient for this year that they earned is 12.640. That is more than what their total coefficient was before this year. That is really the difference of that the Champions League can make for a coefficient. And, they're going to go soaring up the European ranks. So that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Anyway, long episode. I do appreciate if you watched to this point. Hopefully I talked about things inadequate detail. I feel like there's more I could have talked about, to be honest, in terms of some of the younger players. Perhaps this would be better suited to its own separate episode at the end of the year, where we go through the stats and stuff. Feel free to let me know. You know, I feel like this has been a rambly episode, but I do hope you guys enjoyed the extra detail and stuff, particularly some of the tactical breakdown, just explaining some of my decisions. Let me know if you'd like to see the tactic on the Steam Workshop. If you have got to this point in the video, please leave a like. You know, I appreciate you guys watching it. A way you can show some just a little bit of appreciation for the content, and it also lets me know that you like this kind of end of season review if you like the video. Anyway, if you do have any comments, feel free to leave them down below. If this is somehow the first video you're watching here on my channel, I mean, congrats on getting this far, I guess. I do appreciate it. Subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you guys for next season, which will be Season 17 here at Gibraltar Apex, with me, Jack. And yeah, that is all from me. Thank you for watching, and yeah, I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.